is KTM still screwing the pooch? I mean, it's a whole nother new year. It doesn't matter that the last bad thing happened in December and it's now January, but they're still messing up, man. There is a whole bunch of new KTM news that has come out over the holidays, and I gotta say, I didn't think it could get much worse, and yet, here we are. Well, once again, we're talking about KTM on Not a KTM. I just have been renting the KTM out quite a bit on RiderShare, so it is currently sitting in the garage waiting for some regular maintenance. And I wanted to let you guys know that the CB is still available to be won. There's only like 50 or 60 entries right now, so you can get yourself entered to win by clicking the link down in the description below. So you have some seriously good odds. It's a great way to support the channel if you're not interested in the whole Patreon thing. It's allowed me, this is the second awesome bike that we've had, and Jake the Garden Snake and I are teaming up, fingers crossed, for another awesome bike that we're both super interested in checking out, and it is a supermoto, so that could be the next giveaway bike. Guesses down below. But anyway, we got to talk about KTM because there has been some developments. We'll go over a brief summary of all of what's been going on with KTM, because holy cow, has there been a lot. So, and I've got videos covering just about everything that's come out so far. But just kind of a brief overview. KTM is over $3 billion in debt. That's B followed by an illion. They're $3 billion in debt. And they have had massive sales drops in both the United States and in the UK, which those are their big markets. They're also going through what feels like an international version of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It's not officially called bankruptcy, which is important. So basically what that international bankruptcy filing that's not quite bankruptcy is they have 90 days from the time that they initiated it to come up with a plan that makes their creditors happy so that they can actually make good on their outstanding debts, which, you know, the folks at KTM, they were like, this is a transitory thing, that we're not going to be dealing with this for too long, we promise. They talked to dealers saying the same thing, that this is a transitory event, don't worry, everything's good. And then they got rid of MV Agusta. So I was sitting here thinking, like, okay, I think KTM's all right. The biggest warning sign would be if they start dropping brands. And then, like, a week later, they let go of MV Agusta. So that was when I was like, you know what? Things are really bad over at KTM. Then we found out that KTM was stopping production. They weren't able to pay out salaries and bonuses to people. They cut the amount of people on the board, which I actually am okay for. It's rare to see people at the top of a company lose their job. Usually it's the people in the salt mines who get the axe. I'm not sure how much money that's actually going to save the company, but we'll see. Usually they end up having to pay out like a big ass golden parachute. But you know, it makes me think that they're actually trying to do the right thing. And KTM wants to succeed, so they're getting rid of the people who are perhaps the biggest financial drains. Also, I mean, if you're a motorcycle manufacturer, how do you manufacture motorcycles if you get rid of all the people in the factories, you know? But because this story can't stop developing, there have been some updates. Towards the end of last year, we found out that KTM has a staggering amount of unsold motorcycles just sitting around. They have somewhere in the neighborhood of like 280,000 units left over. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, perhaps, you know, when you consider the volume that some of these companies are doing. 280,000 units could easily be the number of motorcycles that a small firm sells throughout the year.
All right, so that number felt weird to me, and the statement felt really stupid. So I actually did some research here in the studio, and I'm looking at Harley-Davidson's sales figures for the last 4 reported quarters, and they have shipped, not sold, 164,400 motorcycles. It's also worth pointing out that Harley-Davidson's stated business strategy is to sell fewer motorcycles. The year before, in that same period, they sold just over 200,000 motorcycles. So KTM has more motorcycles sitting in reserve than Harley-Davidson has shipped in an entire year. And KTM is a much smaller brand than Harley-Davidson is. That is an apocalyptic number of motorcycles sitting around.
Now, they're not all from the same year. Some of them are definitely model year carryovers, because KTM has a lot of years where they, maybe they haven't updated the Enduro R for a few years, and so there's really no difference between a 2022 and a 2024, and there's still a 2022 sitting on the lot for way cheaper, so the 2024 will sit there for a few years. That happens a lot. In fact, my Enduro R, I bought it in 2024 as a 2023 carryover. So I got a nice deal on it because the dealership was like, we need to get rid of these motorcycles. And dealerships will pay fees to a manufacturer for bikes that haven't been sold. So, for example, if you're sitting on a motorcycle from a few years ago, you're still paying the manufacturer to house that unit on your floor. That's just one of the reasons why dealerships have a lot of fees, is they're getting a lot of fees from on high from whatever manufacturers they're working with, so they have to make up some of those fees on the back end. I'm not excusing that, because that's not the consumer's problem. That's the dealership's problem, but it is part of the reason why you see a lot of fees at dealerships, just in case you weren't aware. But sitting on that much inventory, that's money that KTM has already spent. They spent a lot of money to build those units. Admittedly, they probably didn't spend all, they didn't spend to make all those units what they would charge to sell them, because then you're not going to run a very good business if you're doing that. I do not like these roads have been treated, because we've got winter storm coming. So these roads have been treated with some like anti-freeze shit, and it feels decently sticky, but I've never ridden over it before, so feeling a little cagey. But anywho, let's say that each one of those units averages out to $12,000, because that feels like a good base price for most KTMs. Obviously you've got a lot of beginner bikes, which they're probably going to sell a lot more of. But let's say that the average net price across all of those units is about $12,000. I don't know what the math is on that, but I'm thinking that's close to. No, hold on. Let me pull over and I'll actually do the math. All right, so $12,000. Not negative. 12,000 times, we'll call it an even 280,000. 3. Let's see, how many zeros do we got? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. $3.4 billion. That's what they would theoretically have in all of those motorcycles if they average out to 12 grand. $3.4 billion worth of motorcycles sitting around. Now, that's just back of the napkin math. That's probably not what all of that equates to, but that's just my humble guess as some random internet motorcycle word sayer. You also got to remember that's not all net profit. That you got to subtract what it costs to build all those units, and you've got to factor in cost to ship and all that stuff. But that represents a significant amount of money that's just sitting around. The next thing that has been going on is KTM has been talking. They've called a meeting for later this month to talk about whether or not they've found the bridge financing. They were seeking a massive amount of money in bridge financing. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's a huge range. And it seems like they may have found that. That's currently what the theory is, that they have found the financing they were looking for. I don't know, man. When you've got that much unsold product and you've got this much negative press going around you, finding that kind of money, ow. The last big thing that has been going on is there has been rampant speculation about whether or not KTM will be involved in MotoGP in this upcoming season and the seasons afterward. And right now, it seems like they're going to be involved in the 2023 season, or 2023, in the 2025 season, but they will not be involved in 2026. The interesting thing is in 2027, the new displacement rules in MotoGP will be kicking in, which means that it's highly likely that you're going to have to develop an entirely new motorcycle, and KTM cannot afford that right now. They absolutely cannot afford to develop a new race bike. But KTM has been getting pressure from their creditors not to get involved in GP or to pull out from GP. Well, first of all, pulling out of GP represents a significant financial cost because you have to basically pay Dorna to get out of it. Ask Suzuki. Suzuki pulled out of GP, and it cost them a good pile of cash because they didn't tell anybody. They were like, nope, we're done racing. And so to pull out without letting Dorna know costs you money. Also, if you want back in GP and you've stiffed them in the past, they're less likely to want to talk to you again. There have been a lot of rumors floating around, though, that Lewis Hamilton, the F1 racer, has expressed interest in taking over the KTM team. And this one I cannot confirm nor deny. I have seen from KTM race team people that no, they have not been talking to Lewis Hamilton, and that yes, they have been talking to Lewis Hamilton. It's not the first time that a racer has, run a team in MotoGP. I mean, Valentino Rossi has his own VR46 race team right now. So, makes sense. But that would be wild. That would absolutely be wild for the factory KTM team to basically not be factory KTM. But I think it's a bad idea for KTM to pull out of MotoGP because that's what gets their sport bikes in front of sport bike riders. Because KTM doesn't have to worry about engaging dirt bike people. They just don't. Everybody who rides a dirt bike knows about KTM. Not everybody who rides a sport bike knows about KTM. They look at it and KTM's the dirt bike company. Why would I want to buy a sport bike from the dirt bike company? Oh, well, they race in MotoGP, so we have trickle-down MotoGP tech. Now I'm interested. It really is, when you think about it, it's just marketing. That's all it is. It's just marketing. So you're withdrawing from one of the biggest marketing opportunities that you could ask for. And I don't understand why KTM would want to pull out. I mean, it costs money, and they probably don't have the finances to develop a new motor for the new displacement rules. But until that happens, you might as well just stay in and race. Even if you can't afford the best talent, there's always going to be people in Moto 3 and Moto 2 looking to move up to GP and get on the grid. Because if they demonstrate their value on perhaps a not great motorcycle, then they're all set. They'll go on to another better team. So in the short term, what can you expect from KTM? I would expect to see more bad news, first and foremost, more bad news. And secondly, I would expect to see a fire sale on some of these units that are just sitting around. Expect to see some great deals on carryover KTMs. And for those people out there who are like, I'm never going to buy a bike from a manufacturer that doesn't exist anymore, KTM's not going anywhere. Whether or not they exist in the form that they exist in today, or they don't, that's debatable, but they're not just going to suddenly vanish. So it's not like you're buying a motorcycle from a defunct company or anything. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to get yourself entered to win the CB1000 right here. And with that, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.